Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Coach Spotlight, powered by RockDaisy. I'm your host, Ron McKeefrey, and excited to have Jackson Frey, the Director of Performance at GVN Performance Northshore up in Chicago, outside Chicago area there. Got to start as a basketball player at Maine, coaching roles at Boston College, Nicholls State, Southeast Missouri State, and just kind of been around bringing up, that high level mentality to the facilities that now. Jackson, appreciate you being on the show, man.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Ron. Been looking forward to connecting with you for quite a while now.
You guys have multiple facilities and you're working with a variety of different ages, levels, big hockey, focus. But you're taking them from juniors or midgets or whatever it's called all the way up to the NHL. Talk a little bit about how, Daisy and managing data and communicating that to your athletes has kind of helped you to develop those athletes across their lifespan in the sport.
Yeah, for sure. And when it comes to just kind of the way that our company is set up in the facilities, we do run on a group model. So some of our groups are going to be 10, 12, 15 athletes or more. So we wanted to find a way to basically have all our data in one place. We work with Vald, we work with Hawk and Dynamics, we work with 1080 Motion, and we want to have a place where we can, instead of jumping back and forth from each individual server, have a place where we can look at everything all at once so that, we're being efficient with looking at our key performance indicators, looking at the information that's going to help us drive programming for each athlete, whether they're 15 or 16 years old, or they're in their low 20s. They're going to be focused on different things, and being able to look at all the data in one place makes it very efficient for us to, give them what they need to succeed in our eyes.
You're big in really the holistic approach to this, managing, nutrition and recovery and mindset. How has this data been able to drive better buy-in into those areas from your athletes and their parents?
Yeah, I mean, being able to look at those big output metrics, the ones that athletes can understand, sprint times, jump heights. So if we're tracking the progress, week to week, which we do, and we can show them those trends. So if they're down for 1 week, we don't let it bother us too much. If anything, given what we know about training, you want to see a dip in performance at times in order to get that super compensation effect. But showing athletes, we're looking at 2-3 weeks in a row where your jump scores are going down. Are you skating more than you should be? Are you sleeping well? Those can provide us with a way to start the dialogue with athletes on a, one-on-one basis to try to dive a little bit deeper on some of their habits.
You and I both know that working with college athletes or any athlete, is motivated by the next level, right? And being able to give them a snapshot of what I always say is define good, right? I'm good with you coming in saying you want to make the NFL, but we're going to define good. And you're going to know exactly where you're at compared to that and how we can develop you across the board. I know you've created some dashboards that kind of track their profile and bucket them. Talk a little bit about those dashboards and how you bucket athletes to put them into their developmental stages.
Yeah, for sure. So, I got this idea from Tim Labossiere with the Bruins, but number one, we look at, are you big enough, right? Hockey's a violent sport, and he uses that 90 mile per hour formula, which I obviously was in regards to baseball to begin with, but we just look at, let's say we get a 16, 17-year-old athlete. We look at, you're 6 feet tall. We take your height in inches times that by 2.5, and that's the bare minimum that you should be, right? And I have a chart up in the weight room, so just showing each person, if they come in and they're 15 and they're 20 pounds below, like hypertrophy is going to be the number one priority. Like you need to build some armor so that you can actually survive a season. So to us, that's level one. So look at, are you big enough? Then we ask the question, are you strong enough? So being able to have all the Hawk and Dynamics data in here, and I can pull up an example of an athlete here. So I call this the Avicii dashboard, because trying to put them into different levels. It's a bad Avicii joke there, but basically, height in inches, how much do you weigh? He's someone that definitely checks off that you're big enough threshold. Then I'll look down at ISO belt squat test. So we use the belt, so the numbers are definitely going to be higher, but looking at a lot of numbers over a lot of different populations throughout our all 4 facilities, I've basically decided that 60 newtons per kilogram is kind of like the ticket to the dance. If you can't at least hit 60 newtons per kilogram, then you're just going to be on a basic strength program. Once you check that weight box and the strength box, then we start to look into more of the minutia here. So how are you producing the force when it comes to your jump score? So average relative braking force, average relative propulsive force, and then time spent in each phase. These are numbers that we start to look at now. So, everyone produces force in a different type of way. I know the big sexy thing right now in the industry is kind of that elastic athlete versus the muscular athlete. So they're gonna have different numbers here when you look at, braking force versus propulsive force relative to their body weight. But in general, we want to see these numbers be, 210, 220% of their body weight. And if they're not, then kind of answers a question for us. So for this person was more of a braking force focused program. So that's kind of like the third bucket is, are you strong enough in the braking phase and in the propulsive phase from a general standpoint? And then once we cross that threshold, then we're into our level 4 athletes that are just going to be more focused on rate of force development. So we can very easily kind of tease out what you need more of based on some very repeatable and reliable lower body strength and power tests from Hawkin Dynamics. So that's just kind of one example of an athlete that we have here where I determined that he was a level 3 braking force focused athlete.
When you're bucketing these athletes, are you putting them in their own group and it's a different program, or are you making it to when they arrive at the exercise, they might have a different set rep protocol?
They're going to have a different set rep protocol on the exercise. And once they actually look at the tablet and they get that, and sorry about that. Once they actually get started with the workout, we base our groups on the level that you play at. So we could have level 2s, level 4s in the same group. It's just going to change how they're doing the exercise or what exercise they're doing. And what's nice about RockDaisy is not only can you look at all the data, but you can make programs. So we do all of that with RockDaisy.
Yeah, that's the way to go, because no 14-year-old kid, no 18-year-old kid doesn't want to be with their buddies and be in a different group on a certain day, right? They want to be able to train with their similar position, similar, team, whatever. And I think that keeping them in that group is the right move. Once you've got them knowing what they need to do to go to the next level, then it's giving them daily communication, daily feedback, monthly feedback. Talk a little bit about how you show them progress throughout their training journey.
Yeah, so there's a athlete progress dashboard that we use, and I'll share it with you right now. This one's just a simple one. We've added to this recently, but I'll show you this just for the sake of example. We look at the force set within this time constraint a little bit, but this would more show, we're basing what buckets they're in based on force metrics. So we like to show them that relative force score that I mentioned before. We had some people kind of start in like the mid 40s of newtons per kilogram and then get up into the 70s within the off season. So they can see a pretty good improvement there. And then the ones that we test quite a bit would be the jump height. So typically just once per week, but we'll show them the progress here. And this is good to show them over time, right? Starting at 11.98, getting to 12.39, but also the journey week to week. Because if we learn anything in this industry is that, again, you want to see a bit of a dip and have it be kind of that valley where the peak is higher than what the initial one was. So this just kind of shows that the training that we were doing, especially through this phase here, kind of mimics what is physiologically happening with a person as they strength train.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, you guys have you have multiple facilities and multiple coaches, and the athletes maybe even go to different facilities at different times. How has RockDaisy really helped kind of consolidate get everybody on the same page, make sure that it's a consistent messaging across the board.
Yeah. And so at our different, all four facilities, we communicate quite often. And because RockDaisy allows for, I believe it's up to 600 athletes on the plan that we have all four gyms underneath the same account. So I can look at anyone's information across our four facilities. So that really gives us a huge data set to compare against when we're looking at certain metrics. But also, let's say someone works out at our downtown Chicago gym, they need to come out here because they're doing a skate. All the programs are under the same thing as well. So I can very easily pull up, John Smith onto a tablet up here at the Northshore gym, or if I send someone downtown, it's all going to be in one place. And it makes it really easy for us because, we are, again, in the Chicago area, so close together. So there is quite a bit of musical chairs depending on where people are skating.
Yeah. So whenever you take on a piece of tech like this, or software, there's always a learning curve. There's always trying different things to really dial it in. What advice would you give somebody that's new to RockDaisy or an athlete management system to try to try to dial it in as fast as they possibly can?
Yeah, I would say number one, keep it simple. Obviously, there's so many different ways you can go with it. Stick to what you are comfortable with and are comfortable communicating to other coaches and to athletes, and then utilize the resources that are available to you. RockDaisy does a great job, providing customer support. They'll get on the phone with you. They'll show you how to use every single in and out of the system. So definitely take advantage of that so you make sure you're fully utilizing all of its capabilities.
Man, it's obvious to me, and I know everybody else, that you guys are running a phenomenal program there, and integrating athlete management system at that level is, that's cutting edge. It's awesome to see. And so appreciate you jumping on the show with us and sharing a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.